Camera number 199 of 365 is the Canon T70. I have already done the T80, and in some respects they're very similar, but just a few functions here and there that are changed around. Very enjoyable camera to use, quite a heavy one given that it's constructed primarily of plastic, but there's a lot of electronics running through the camera, and it is a camera that requires batteries to operate. And the way we operate or put the batteries in, it's two AA batteries that are housed in the grip, and then we just simply make sure we close the door. I don't know whether you can see on the front there, it says it's the Canon T70. It's a multiple program autofocus dual metering system, and that kind of sums up the camera there. It is principally a shutter priority camera with some program modes, but you can also use the, it sounds strange, you can actually use the shutter priority program and change the aperture, so you can almost get aperture priority as well. Perhaps I'll explain that a bit later on. But in the meantime, it takes the full range of autofocus lenses that Canon produced, not many of them admittedly, because they were transitioning, weren't they, into the A series. We take the lens off by pressing the lens release button on the lens, and then that reveals our mount, which so it can house FD lenses. FL lenses also are quite happily placed on the camera, but you do need to do stop-down metering. But the camera is capable of doing that and producing some good results. So looking at the front, we have a port for a cable release, which is electronic, and then we have our electronic preview button, which does double up, which we'll mention in a bit later. Otherwise, that's pretty much it on the front. So let's just put the lens back on. And then turning our attention to the top plate, the business side of the camera as it were, we have our on-off button. So we have to press the release, otherwise it doesn't undo. So let's just do that, that's already done, excellent. So then we just slide, and the first turns it on and activates the average metering mode. But we also have, if we move the slider switch one more, we can choose partial metering mode, and then further still takes us to our self timer. Let's just put it back to average, and we've got on this particular occasion we've got shutter priority mode, and looking through the viewfinder, it shows us our aperture through the viewfinder, and our shutter value as well is on there. And I mentioned earlier that in shutter priority mode we can alter our shutter speed by pressing the up or down buttons. I don't know if you can see that. Let's just see. There we go. Changing the shutter speeds. But we can also, by pressing the button on the front we mentioned earlier, this button here, we can actually change, although it's not reflected in the top screen, but it is reflected in the viewfinder. By pressing the up or down button we can actually change our aperture. So I thought that was an interesting deployment, if you like, of a shutter priority, but you can also use it as a shutter priority, and the camera will choose the correct shutter speed. So it's trying to cater for everybody's likes there, I think. To change the mode, we select the mode button, which is the top button here, and then we can just toggle through using these two buttons. A program wide button, which according to the manual, basically the camera will choose apertures to make sure that everything is in focus. So typically it will choose 16 or 22. And then if we go down, we just have program mode, and then if we go down further we have program tele, and basically that will use apertures so that a small portion of the picture is in focus. So typically we'd use that with portraits. So we get our subject in focus and then everything behind it will be soft, highlighting the portrait. And that's pretty much it in terms of program modes. We can choose our ISO, which is a nice feature, and then we have a battery check. To put film in our camera, we press and slide the lock, and then that allows us to put our film in our camera. On the base we do have a rewind button, which I presume we could use even partially through a roll of film, just by pressing the button, actually sliding the switch, pressing the button, and then just keeping it held down. So that's nice. Tripod mount, and then film memo. Otherwise that's it. So that has been camera number 199 of 365.